All right, men, I have something that I want to talk to you about so that you can discover this internal power that resides within all of us. Now, if you're a woman listening to this, share this with your guy friends because they definitely are going to want to find out. Now, this was inspired after, any of you that know me, I love the UFC. And I've been following the whole Sugar Sean, Marab fighting, what is it, two fights now. And it was interesting because I was watching Sugar Sean's show where he was with Tim Welsh as well as with Schmitty in Sugar Sean's channel, but then even in Tim Welsh's channel, there's this reoccurring theme about jerking off.
Been the whole, really? It's been this whole year. I haven't smoked, haven't drank, haven't jerked the old turkey.
What the really?
Not once.
Making us look bad. That's fucking.
Well, every time I do it too, I'm like, I'm a bitch.
What am I gonna fucking do for 7 months?
Yeah,
Sit around,
exactly.
fucking play with my wiener. Don't do that anymore. So.
Yeah.
And I don't think you should be allowed to
Jerk? I ain't doing that, bud. I'm jerking off.
No,
Sorry,
you can
man.
do that. You can do that. Boo.
This is one of the things I actually really like about them is beyond just the amazing fighting skills and all the coaching and the practicalities, they really go behind the scenes and they just are very honest and transparent and bear everything just right out there. And one of the things that Sugar Sean was talking about was that he is abstaining from jerking off, and they're also talking about porn use. Now, I don't know if that means that he's also abstaining from sex in general or whatever that might be, but there's this, I don't even know where it comes from, but there's this kind of old Grecian belief around sapping the strength of one's seed. Now, think about it for a second. What do you think that means? Well, I'm going to tell you. What they're talking about, this goes back quite a long ways, which is that if you ejaculate before competition, so even the Grecian Olympians would not engage in sex, would not ejaculate before competition. Even the pancreation, which is this old Grecian form, like ancient, sort of like ancient MMA, would also then not release their seed before fighting because it would sap the strength of their seed, meaning that the seed or the semen has this potency that allows you to fight harder. Now, that's an old times, but frankly, I've seen it come up even more recently. There was a podcast between, it was Daniel Cormier and Ben Askren. By the way, Ben Askren, shout out to you. Hope that you and your family are doing well. Hope that you're also recovering in the hospital. Maybe you're feeling better by now. I really hope so. But they were talking about, and Daniel was saying that he would not ejaculate before a fight. And Ben goes, that's stupid. That's been disproven. And well, it's true because the way that the story is told is that you boost your testosterone levels by not ejaculating. Now, the interesting thing is, there was this study recently that tried to prove this. It was a Chinese study, I forget how many men, but there was like around 140% increase in testosterone if men abstained from ejaculation for about a week. Now, this study has been retracted for some different reasons. Basically, they doubt the results on it. Now, the interesting thing is that it's right. Ben's right in the sense that, okay, it's been proven that testosterone levels don't get increased by abstinence. However, maybe we're not really looking at the right hormones. There are such things such as dopamine, such as neuroepinephrine, epinephrine, as well as oxytocin that all rise when you are having a sexual experience, and that they can then drop significantly after ejaculation. So how this is normally done and the way that people think about it is that, okay, I'm going to abstain from sex. There's even a whole movement called NoFap, which conflate non-masturbation or not masturbating with not ejaculating, with not using porn use, and also avoiding then premature ejaculation, saving yourself for marriage. This whole thing just sort of gets thrown together. And it's really important to piece out the differences in these practices, because if all you're doing is abstaining, okay, sure, you can be charging yourself up. You could be avoiding, the negative impacts of having that drop before a fight. I even saw, it was Mike Perry and with Jake Paul. They were getting ready to have their fight, and Jake Paul asked him, "So, when's the last time you released?" And they were doing this tough guy thing, saying that it had been several weeks. There was Muhammad Ali was probably the first one to popularize this. You watch the movie Raging Bull. Jake LaMotta talks about not wanting to be weak in the legs, so he also uses this to charge himself up. And so there's this consistent thing around not ejaculating because guys are actually experiencing a charge. So where does that come from? Well, dopamine is something that's going to spike up, and if that drops, then you lose a lot of these senses of motivation. Epinephrine is very similar to adrenaline, and it gives you that physical charge, keeps you in the sympathetic, really drives you forwards towards something. Neuroepinephrine keeps that mental focus that you're going to want in a fight. And oxytocin, well, maybe not the one for a fight, but it gives you this sense of interconnectedness with others. Well, and if you hear about people that are really in the zone with fighting, they can better feel that other person. Well, in the least, the higher levels of oxytocin will make you a much better partner. And if you think about the importance of most fighters, just watch the Tough Season, The Ultimate Fighter. There is almost every single fighter has, maybe not, I would say the majority of the fighters, they have a relationship. There at least is 50% of them, large percentage, that go into their girlfriend and how their girlfriend supported them into fighting and how they fight for her as much as for themselves, and they're building themselves a future. So their relationship really does tie into their performance. Sean is saying that everything that makes the difference right now is that baby that he's holding after the fight, even after the loss, and saying that he has never really felt better, and the fan support's there, and it's holding this baby, and goes on about the smell of the baby, which, by the way, is a major oxytocin inducer. So what I want to propose is that there is a whole other way to go around sexual practice. You see, if you're abstaining from sex in order to not have those drops, you're missing out on actually going into a sexual experience and then having ejaculatory choice, choosing not to release. Because it's that plateau phase, that area right before you ejaculate, that you actually are already getting these surges in dopamine, surges in neuroepinephrine, surges in epinephrine, as well as these surges in oxytocin. And then if you don't release, they get maintained. Now, unfortunately, the studies that are out there really conflate abstinence with non-ejaculatory choice, because they really can't conceive that someone would engage in a sexual experience and not release. So if you have the practice, however, of releasing, and I really want to get some studies out there that can start showing that, maybe if you look at Nicole Prouse's work, she speaks about maintaining all the health benefits that happen just before orgasm. So imagine a masturbatory practice that starts to bring you to these heightened states of arousal where your dopamine starts to go up to 400%. Same with epinephrine, neuroepinephrine, and oxytocin. I mean, like, they go up tremendously, but then you don't release, and then you maintain it, and then you supercharge your workout from that. And you become hyper-focused with even more discipline than just abstaining and then swinging the pendulum back, which is, okay, well, now that I'm not fighting, I'm just gonna go out and release, and sort of like cutting weight, where you make sure that you don't eat food beforehand and then you binge with the food after, as opposed to just really maintaining a healthy balance that is going to increase you ever and ever and ever forward. I mean, Daniel Cormier even had an ad on one of his YouTube videos where he was talking about this little pill that you can take, which is some form of Viagra, PDEs 5, something like that, O5s, which are basically to help you get and maintain a harder erection. Well, if you do this practice, you will notice the quality of your erection going up. You'll notice the amount of sensation you have, and you'll also notice the amount of connectivity that you maintain with your partner, the charge that you carry in your life. Chael Sonnen was, recently I saw another ad on his channel talking about the importance of therapy. Patty talks about the importance of yeah, men and being able to speak about their emotions and what's happening and the severe amount of depression and suicide that's happening in the world. Specifically with men, I was looking at some statistics, and I think it's 2 to 4 times as likely in Canada or the UK that if there's a suicide, that it is a man that has committed suicide versus a woman. So there's this whole thing around mental health. And Sean, I know that you care a lot about giving forward and helping people. Well, I'm curious, and Tim, what if you then started to actually bring some of these sexual training practices to your guys? I have coached many men and even put together a protocol, not just around penetration. That one's a published paper already showing the benefits of the relational boost that's happening in terms of feeling closer before, during, and after sex, better communication before, during, and after sex, higher levels of feeling of love, of connection, but also some fun stuff as well. Guys lasting 3 times as long during a sexual experience. In fact, bridging the orgasm gap, which if you don't know what the orgasm gap is, that is the length amount of time for a woman to reach orgasm versus the amount of time the average male lasts during sex. And I think it's like 13.41 minutes for a woman to reach orgasm from penetration alone. And for the guy, typically lasts 5 to 7 minutes. So there's that gap in between. Well, we filled that gap with pleasure. And frequency of orgasm went up for women. The women scored higher on the female sexual function index, meaning that everything was just working better. They also reported more powerful sensations during orgasm. So, I mean, it's quite significant. And this was not even focusing specifically just on men. Put together a different protocol called YEAHFAP, which is the opposite side of NoFap, which is like, okay, we're going to abstain from sex, we're going to abstain from masturbation, we're going to abstain from pornography, we don't want to have porn addiction, and we're not going to then ejaculate because it drives towards premature ejaculation, needing more and more dopamine to be able to, something, even watching something more extreme in pornography, just to be able to have sensation. Well, with YEAHFAP, we found that actually, as opposed to just going back and forth between, which I see the NoFappers doing all the time, is I'm not going to do it, oh, now I'm going to binge on it, not going to do it, now I'm going to binge on it, is that if you start to integrate it into your life in a way that you have non-ejaculatory choice and learn to connect to yourself, it has removed porn addiction for these guys. It has given them not just 2 or 3 times the amount of time that they can last during a sexual experience. It becomes a choice whether they want to or not, which means then that their partners aren't just having 1 orgasm, their partners are having as many orgasms as possible. In fact, it's not even about counting orgasms, it's they enter into these orgasmic states, full body states that literally drive you into what would be otherwise described as a psychedelic state. It's a parasympathetic dominant state of the nervous system where your arousal levels remain high, they go beyond what you've ever experienced, and you show up differently as a person in your everyday life. You show up differently in your relationship. And I mean, this is something that is so fundamental to this power that we have. So as opposed to only focusing on keeping or maintaining the charge or not dispelling the charge from the seed, this is actually about charging up your seed. This is about giving you new levels of energy, focus, drive, determination, and connection to yourself and your partner. Now, think about this. Here's another one. It's Bridget Freehart and Sherry Meston out of the University of Austin, Texas. They did a study where they were looking at sexual satisfaction in partnerships. And they're looking at this thing called physiological synchronicity. And they're looking at the heart rate variabilities to see if they're being able to attune to each other and if this leads then to better sex, happier relationships. And what they found was that the 2 most important factors for this physiological synchronicity to happen, which led to better relationship and better sex, was self-awareness and attunement. Self-awareness is that ability to track what's happening inside oneself. And attunement is your ability to then stay in tune, stay in sync, and to feel into your partner. With this YEAHFAP program, not only are you starting to really gain an ability of ejaculatory control or ejaculatory choice, ability to last longer. It's even helped guys with delayed ejaculation to be able to ejaculate when they want to, because what it's doing is it's putting them back into their body. It's about connecting back into the body. And these skills then directly translate into the same system, the suction sex system that we used in the protocol, which is now a published paper, that is going to allow oneself to be actually a better lover. So as opposed to all these ridiculous videos on just do Kegels and exercise your sex muscles, which they have their place in the training, but if you really want to translate these things into the bedroom and even into the ring, then you might want to take a look at a whole other way around charging up your seed. And in fact, I would say, if you want to take the F for the ultimate champions, so that it's not just about fighting, but it's the ultimate champions, then you definitely want to check this out, because there is a whole other way that you can start to relate to yourself, relate to your partner, and begin to literally supercharge your life. So Sean, Tim, I'm putting a direct shout out to you. If you're interested in this, reach out, let's get in contact, because I would love for you to see what would be the effects if your gym, Tim, or anyone else out there who's interested in this, would start to put this training into effect. So again, it's not just the ultimate fighting champions, but you can be the ultimate champions of